Uhuru. I'm going to be presenting as the chair of the Black is Back Healthcare Working Group. And this presentation might seem a little disjointed, but there are two key points I want to make sure that you get. So the first thing I want to do is opening up with the video with Fauci. Could you put that on? Yes, 30-second video. Please listen closely to this. Thank you. This was he talked about this in 2020-22 in Philadelphia. Basically, that's the video clip where Fauci is saying, they were asking him about, the pandemic. And basically what he said is, we made a few errors, because we didn't really know what to do. But what we have since learned then is that maybe we were rushing to put people on ventilators. And that probably did a lot more damage when all they could have done was just reposition them and turn them over on their side. That's a key point I wanted you all to be aware of. Now, next, could you play the clip on biomagnetic energy? I happen to have been working with biomagnetic energy for a long time. I'll let you know when to start it. And this is a clip. This doctor is speaking in Spanish. So you might be able to read a little bit of what he's saying, but basically this is an examination of blood under the microscope before somebody has been introduced to magnetic energy and then afterwards. So you can start playing the clip. And I just wanted to show you that, to just plant the seed, because I have been working with biomagnetic energy on my own as a lay believer for about 20-something years, and I just know what it does when we are introduced to this energy. It is very impactful. Now I want to ask if you could go to the PowerPoint called Guerrilla Warfare, that document, if you could bring that up. Okay, if you could go to page 10, I think it is, please, thank you. That's a document that the Healthcare Working Group put together showing non-invasive strategies that we could utilize that are very important that could help our people. Could you go to the next one, I think it is? Okay, my brother was killed in 2021 when they forced a ventilator down him. I don't even think he had COVID. He had to be rushed to the hospital because he was complaining that he could not walk. He said he had nerve damage. And so I remember so we get there and I had brought other documents there to be prepared to have to challenge the doctor, but I wasn't prepared for a ventilator situation at all. And the next thing I know, this maniacal doctor is insisting upon putting him on a ventilator, and he's laying on his back. He was not complaining that he could not breathe before. And so under force, because we were ambushed, my brother under great duress agreed, and I had nothing to counter it with. But I had remembered that I had seen or read something that said, and this was in 2021, Fauci made that statement in 2022. And I remembered reading something that said, if you reposition them, turn them over on their side, don't have them on their back, that could maybe help prevent them from being on a ventilator. So out of a last minute desperation, I said to this doctor, I said, can't you turn him over on his side? Can't you reposition him? To which she barked at me, I'm practicing medicine, as if she thought I had asked her for McDonald's or something. And then she walks away from me, rude and sarcastic and arrogant. 10 minutes later, my brother was dead as he screamed out at the top of his lungs. I went home because I'm about turning pain into power. We're never gonna be, I know more and more every single day for that Gil Scott-Heron song meant when he said the revolution will not be televised. We're never gonna hear any damn thing that we need to know through the mainstream media. But I knew what I had heard. And so we updated that document, which I think everybody should have. And if you'll notice in that document, this is, I think, page 10. We talk about prone positioning. This was long before Fauci came out and acknowledged that that worked. Long before mainstream medicine said that it worked. But we saw documentation, even in some of the mainstream medical journals, that said if you prone position them, put them on their stomach and not on their back, that it could prevent them from going on ventilators. That research, from what I had been studying, I want to study more, had been out since the 70s. In fact, before they had ventilators, from what I understand, that's what they used to do. Could you bring up the next document, please? I think it's the one that says humane ventilators. Yes, that's a flyer. You might not be able to see it so well from here, but that's a flyer that the healthcare working group made up and began to pass around in our communities about humane alternatives to ventilators, like one of them, high flow nasal cannula, instead of these mechanical ventilators which do so much damage. Another one, the helmet ventilator. And we also talked about the prone positioning, and we linked to documentation that shows that, yes, and how you can put them, turn them over on this side. Long before, how do I know this? How did the healthcare working group know this before Fauci knew it? And in 2022 said it. Again, I want to emphasize that we're not going to hear these things in the mainstream medical news or mainstream sources. And somebody like myself, I don't have the medical background, but we all have experience with living. We all have experience with touching somebody. We all have the experiences of our mothers and our fathers hugging us and nurturing us when we were not well. We all have the experience of hearing that when somebody says, oh, I tried this and that worked or whatever, whether we possess the medical terminology or not, or the scientific terminology or not, to be able to talk about it in that way. What they call science, and this is part of what we have been basically discussing all along about what colonialism is and what it does. It hijacks a narrative. And when you don't have a counter to it, it rewires your brain, and it defines all medical science is in this country is what the colonizer says that it is. They have the control to call something science or not. It is not necessarily based on fact. It does not necessarily mean that it is true. But we have to understand, and I just want to ask our people to be open. We used to have the Underground Railroad. Like I said, all that we need to know is never going to be televised to us, and there's never going to be something coming out and say, oh, we need to know this. But we need to remain connected to each other. We need to make some shifts sometimes. I never learned so much of what I was able to be fortunate enough to learn, like about magnetic energy, which I learned about to somebody in a health food store, basically whispered something to me about it, who happened to be a nurse. And I was like, wow, it couldn't hurt anything. So I said, let me try it. And I was bowled over when I did, whether I could explain it or not. Colonialism literally lobotomizes our mind. When the chairman talks about that ridiculous, scandalous allegations that they said about the chairman, but it wasn't just that it was false. It was done in such a way as to basically try to strip the African People's Socialist Party of any kind of intelligence, of any kind of thought power, or any kind of ability to be able to think on their own, because that's what colonialism must do to enslave a people. They must lobotomize every thought pattern from our minds, and that is exactly what they did with this concept of medicine. I could never have known when I began to learn, because I was trying to prevent my face from breaking out. I could never have imagined over 20-something years ago the path that was going to take me on. I could never have imagined that was going to bring me back to the Black liberation struggle and basically fortify what I had been learning about. because that's exactly what it did do. And we have to understand that our ancestors had a way of relating to this earth, had a way. We had the first societies. It's not by accident that we have, like, the oldest civilization on earth. That's not by accident. It's because we had to understand how to live on this earth and how to reproduce so that our generations could continue. We had the first medical systems, and our medical systems are based on something much different than colonialism, which is about exploitation, control, violence. They're very attracted to violence. They just are. And I just want us to understand that. And I just wanted to plant that seed in our mind. I use the term medical pluralism a lot in this country, meaning that there's more than one way of doing something in this health system. I should have had the right when I got to that emergency room. I fear when anybody goes into these hospitals, which is why I always like to go with them. But I should have had the right when I walked into that emergency room to say I want a doctor who practices traditional African medicine, or, you know, a holistic medicine or something. I should have had the right to ask for that. And as Black people, we have the right to define and choose and control our own medicine. The FDA should have no say in anything that we do. It has proven to be a complete failure. And the continent of Africa, I'll just say this in closing, had the best stats on the continent in terms of the COVID. Now, I know there was a lot of questions about whether they had the capacity to properly count and all of this kind of stuff. But one of the ways that I work, one of my processes is that when I'm researching something and I hear about something, I hear about, oh my gosh, there's some great herb or whatever like that, I'll do research about it. And I've also discovered that their mainstream medical journals, although they don't tell us this, but that research is in their scientific journals. So every herb that I ever heard about, like Artemisia, that I was hearing about in Africa that they were using, I would also cross-reference and look at these other journals. And I would see that, yes, their research also showed, their research had been shown that Artemisia helps to prevent COVID, had been showing that. So I just wanted to show you that. I want to say, please help us get this information out to the community. We made up flyers. I'll make sure to try to have some flyers tomorrow. But those flyers about ventilators should go out to people. And I know that many of us took a hit during this pandemic. We've been taking hits before, but I stand with you. I say, turn this pain into power, and let's take back control of every aspect of our lives. A better way does exist. Uhuru! Yeah.